there, this is Shruti from digitalempires.co, and in this video, I'm sharing with you the 5 steps that you need to follow to start a blog that actually makes money. Now, if you're looking for the very technical basics of how to start a blog, then you should check out this video that I did on a step-by-step blogging tutorial so that you can actually set up your blog in the right way. In this video, however, we're going to be diving a lot deeper than just the basics and covering the actual strategy of you monetizing a blog. I've personally started and scaled multiple blogs to over $1,000 a month in income, and I'm sharing the exact 5-step strategy with you in this video. So with that, let's jump in. I'm going to break down the whole process of starting a blog and making $1,000 a month in 5 different steps. So step number 1 is setting the foundation. Now, you can watch the video that I recommended at the beginning to see the absolute basics, but I'm still going to cover some of the key foundation tips that you need to keep in mind to actually make a blog that actually makes money. So setting the foundation simply means having the basics in order. Now, the first thing that you need to do is to pick a niche. Now, a niche is simply the industry or the category of content that you're going to be creating. So for example, if you're creating a blog about travel, then your niche is going to be travel. Now, 3 of the most key niches that make the most amount of money on average include health, wealth, and relationships. If you can find a niche which falls into one of these 3 categories, that is already a great start to create a blog, because if you're in a niche which is not really a niche that has a lot of money in it or doesn't really have a lot of potential, then it's going to be hard for you to monetize your blog no matter how amazing you are at writing or anything else. 2 of the other things that are also quite popular and that you can look at include hobbies and personal development. Now, hobbies could be something like playing golf or tarot card reading or astrology. And personal development is personal development, so self-care, self-growth. Altogether, these 5 niches make some of the top 5 niches to actually start a blog that makes money, because if you're starting a blog and you are not picking the right niche right at the beginning, then you're not really setting yourself up for success. And I know this because I have created a blog and spent a year and a half trying to just chase my own tail and was unable to monetize it because I picked the wrong niche. The next thing that you need to keep in mind when it comes to setting the foundation is to buy your domain. Now, your domain is essentially your digital address. So for example, for me, it is digitalempires.co for my business website, and it is indiangirling.com for my travel website. Now, you can essentially pick 2 ways of getting a domain. You can either pick it from a marketplace like GoDaddy or Namecheap, where you can just buy the domain and make sure that it's reserved on your name and on your address. Or you can do it with step number 3, which is going to be with a host. Now, a host is essentially someone who stores your data on the web. So for example, if you have a website that is, let's say, called xyz.com, that is your digital address. However, you need to be able to store it somewhere on the web, right? So think of it as somewhere which basically rents you the place or rents you a house to keep your blog running and smooth. Now, I personally prefer HostGator, which is also what I use, and you can find a 60% discount link if you check out the link in my bio. I've teamed up with them for the special link, so you can't find it anywhere else. So the reason why I recommend going with a self-host instead of going, let's say, on Wix or on Squarespace is because you have a lot more ability to customize and a lot more ability to monetize your blog when you own your own space on the web. So I highly recommend picking up a self-host and making sure that you install WordPress, which is going to be your content management system next on it. Now, your content management system is basically the back end of what every blog looks like. So this is going to be where you are creating blog posts, where you are adding images and graphics, and that is going to be what you work the most with. However, what people will see is going to be the theme that you pick for your blog. Now, when it comes to picking a theme, I'm not going to go too much into details, but really try to pick efficiency of the theme over beauty. People spend months and years of worrying about how their blog is going to look like, but at the end of the day, people don't come to your blog to look at it. People come to your blog to read the stuff that you have there, right? So this means that when you're picking a theme, you should pick a theme which is efficient. It is something that you can easily customize. It is something that is easy to learn. It's not very techy or very complicated for you to understand. And of course, it is something that is quick and effective, because Google or any other search engine will put a lot of preference on websites that load quickly. And there are some themes which are really, really good looking, but they really tend to slow down your website. And you don't want that to be the case when it comes to making money with your blog. Now, what are some of the best practices when it comes to picking, setting the foundation for your blog? So, the first thing, like I mentioned, pick a niche that is profitable and that you can imagine working on for the next few years. Because a lot of people just choose to go with something that they're really excited about. So, let's say they're excited about owning dogs and they will go with that niche. However, at some point, they run out of, let's say, ideas and they run out of the passion that it takes to create a blog. Now, any kind of blog which is going to be a long term, let's say, replacement for your side income or maybe even your full-time income is going to take a lot of effort and content upfront, which means that if you just pick a niche that you're passionate about and that isn't really something which is monetizable, then it's not really going to be the best strategy for you. So what you want to make sure is that you're picking a niche that you either have a skill set in, right? Or you're picking a niche that you're extremely passionate about that you can also create a profit in. And when that comes to profit, check out the 5 niches that I just mentioned before so that you pick something that actually has potential. Now, the next thing when it comes to picking up your domain name is to pick up a .com extension. Now, this basically means that your website is going to be xyz.com instead of xyz.net or xyz.in or xyz.pangtey. The reason why this is the case is because when you're picking a .com extension, you are picking the safest extension to show up on Google search. Now, even though Google doesn't really outright admit it, but it does give a preference to .com extension names instead of, let's say, .net or .in. And if you plan for your blog to be an international blog which can reach people all across the world, then the safest choice for you is to always go with a .com extension. Some of the commonsensical tips when it comes to naming your blog include not using a hyphen or numbers because it's going to be hard for people to remember that. Like if you have a blog which says, I believe dash myself 778, it's going to be hard for you to not only have brand recall, but also hard for people to remember what your blog is all about. So you should pick a name which is easy, which rhymes with the content that you have, which represents the brand that you want to create, and most importantly, uses a name that can be used by an international audience. So if your blog is in English, make sure to pick a name which is also in English, right? So if you pick a name which is, let's say, in Italian or in French, it's going to be hard for the international audience to really resonate with that. However, if you have a blog which is very country specific and you only want to make it in your language, then of course you can pick a name in that language as well. And lastly, don't forget to pick up a self-host such as a HostGator and use wordpress.org. Now, wordpress.org is the open source solution for using content on a website or creating content on a website. Now, one of the mistakes that a lot of new bloggers make, and I made that with my first blog as well, is to go to wordpress.com and then register a particular domain and then start a website there. Now, the issue with that is that wordpress.com is very, very pricey in the long run. It doesn't really allow you the customization options that you can get when you have a self-host, and you essentially share space with a lot of other people. And if you are looking to create a blog that is going to be your side hustle or your full-time income in, let's say, the next year or so, you want to make sure that you are not going with wordpress.com. So keep that in mind. Now, wordpress.com also uses wordpress.org, but wordpress.com is essentially like Wix or Squarespace, which is a host. And these are hosts that you share space with, and that's why it's not the best host when it comes to monetization. They can be great for people who are just looking for a portfolio or just, a place or an online space to represent their work or their art. But if you're someone who wants to make a full-time living blogging, you want to make sure that you're going with the right choice, which is self-host plus wordpress.org. Now, once you have the foundation in place, the next step is to create solid content. Now, anyone who has been able to be successful with monetizing their blog and make, a full-time income off of it will tell you how important content is. And it is really, really important at the beginning. So eventually, as you mature into the blogging space and as you have a large library of content, you don't need to be creating new content all the time. But at the beginning, it is really important for you to have a solid content strategy. Now, think of it this way. A blog is a publishing platform. So think of it as, let's say, a digital newspaper, and your content are the blog posts or the articles that you would publish. So obviously you can't really have a blog if you don't have any blog posts on it, right? And to be specific about this, your content is what people come to read your blog for. They don't come there to know more about you unless you're already famous or have a huge following somewhere. And they necessarily don't come there to look at how pretty your blog is, right? They usually come there because they are interested in finding some kind of information that you can provide them, right, in your particular niche. Now, this is basically going to be the core engine that drives your blog. So without creating solid content foundations, you're not really going to be able to monetize or make money off of it. And most importantly, you won't be able to build authority in a niche and stand out in a crowded niche. Because when it comes to blogging, pretty much every niche is crowded and there is a lot of competition, especially on Google. So without a solid content strategy, you can't really get discovered easily. And when that happens, you don't make money either, right? One of the things that a lot of people ask me, and I think is a misconception, is that do you need to be a great writer or a professional in your niche to actually create a blog? The short answer is no. I have seen many people who are just average writers and they just use a couple of, apps online to proofread their content, or they have their mom reading their content, and they make sure that that is something that they represent. Of course, it does help if you are a great writer, and it does help if you have a strong command on the language in terms of the grammatical use of language, because then you don't need to spend so much time proofreading content, etc. But you can definitely learn how to create blog posts that actually convert, that actually sell, even as a complete beginner, right? And you see lots of people who are experts in their niche, but they don't have a degree in it. So there are lots of people who write about personal finance, but they don't have a finance degree behind it. There are lots of people who write about travel, but they're not necessarily travel agents or went to school to study tourism, right? So you can start a blog in absolutely any niche possible that you are passionate about and that you believe can be a profitable one for you. Now, when it comes to creating content, it is not just enough to write anything and just hit publish. You have to have a strategy behind it. You have to know how to go about picking the right type of content and creating the right type of content as well, right? So the first thing that you need to focus on is to pick the right keywords for your blog posts. Now, keywords are basically the search queries that people are looking for online. So let's say I'm looking for cutting my hair, so I will look for how to cut my hair at home, and let's say how to cut my hair at home is going to be the keyword that I'm going to type in when I go to Google or let's say on YouTube, right? And this is when, if there is someone who has written a blog post and it is a good blog post that Google considers is the right one to show me, then I'm going to go to their blog and then read that, right? So that's how keywords work on the front end. On the back end for you, you have to pick keywords that are right for your website. So if you are, let's say, a travel blog, you're not going to pick up keywords in, let's say, food, right? Because you're not writing about food. So it's very, very important to have a strategy in place when it comes to that. You can use free tools like Google Trends. You can even just type in on the Google search bar and see what are the auto suggestions that come up. You can also use paid tools like Key Search, and there are a gazillion other tools that you can use really. The idea is to simply have some kind of keyword strategy in mind and not just write content that you want to write, but write content that people are actually looking for and that is going to be helpful. Next, it's really important to be consistent about posting as well. And this is something that I cannot, emphasize more, because this is something that really matters a lot at the beginning. Now, if you've been blogging for 5 years, it won't really matter if you don't post for a month or 2 months or 6 months. But at the beginning, when you're creating that credibility, creating that authority, learning how to monetize a blog, it's really important for you to start publishing consistently. Now, I always recommend to go a little bit aggressive when it comes to publishing and recommend 2 or 3 times a week if you can. But if that's not possible, at the very least, publish 1 new article a week, because that is going to let you develop that traction and that momentum much faster, instead of you just publishing once in a blue moon. Keep in mind, there are billions of blogs out there, and the only way for you to differentiate yourself is to have a decent content library in place, which actually is something that is really informational and people can use as well. Now, a bonus tip here for you is to actually run your article through a free extension like Grammarly, which basically proofreads your content for mistakes. Now, if you're not a native speaker, let's say your blog is in English and you need a little bit of help, you can use this tool to just go through your blog post and tell you how to improve that in terms of the grammar, right? When it comes to SEO on your website, this is a very, very big topic, and I possibly cannot cover this in this video. Let me know in the comments if you need more videos on that. You can just simply install the Yoast SEO plugin, which is basically a free plugin on WordPress that will help you optimize your blog post and give you a lot of information and articles on how to optimize for SEO. Again, something that you need to spend time learning, and that you should be learning either directly by websites like Moz or Google, or you can also use it on, or you can also try the Yoast SEO blog and learn how to use it there as well. All right, now that we have the foundation and the basics out of the way, and we have the content creation out of the way as well, let's talk about a very, very important step, which is your traffic strategy. So how are you going to get people over to your website? Who is going to be able to discover you, and how are they going to find you, right? Because without traffic, it is going to be very hard for you to create any kind of income from your blog. Now, the way to look at it is that traffic is pretty much the lifeblood of your blog or your online business. And if you have zero traffic, that means that you will have zero income unless you are, let's say, creating some kind of different platform where you are monetizing as well. So some of the major traffic sources that you might have read about or know about include Google, Pinterest, and YouTube. Now, these are essentially search engines whose job is to come up with the most useful content for people who are searching on those engines, right? And then you have minor traffic sources, which are basically sources which are smaller traffic sources, not as important, but can still play a part, especially at the beginning when you don't have anything else going for you, right? So this would include Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Medium, Quora. Again, different things that you can use. I have lots of videos on this on my channel, so feel free to check them out as well to see how to generate more traffic. Now, when it comes to the major traffic sources, such as the search engines that I just mentioned, they need a lot more effort because you have to front load the effort, because they're not something that they will just show up your content if you have no authority, no credibility, and you just showed up yesterday, right? Because why should they rank your content versus ranking someone who's been around for 5 years or 10 years, right? Google just doesn't really give you that authority just the minute you start. So you have to show these search engines that you are someone that can actually show up. But once you set these up, they pretty much bring you traffic on autopilot, and that's called organic traffic, which means that you don't need to pay for it. You don't have to spend time promoting stuff on Google or on Pinterest. You basically set up strategies that give you traffic on autopilot for the long run. And when it comes to minor traffic sources such as social media platforms or let's say forums, etc., they can actually be a really big time suck, and they can be a waste of time. So if you have a large social media following, by all means, use these minor traffic sources to direct traffic to your blog or to your website. But if you don't really have a social media following, you're absolutely new, you're just starting in the online world, I would not recommend spending too much time there. And I would actually recommend that you spend time investing in figuring out how to use the major traffic sources such as Google, Pinterest, and YouTube to drive you traffic. Now, what are the best practices when it comes to growing your traffic and building your traffic really fast, right? So the first tip that I have for you, and something that I wasted a lot of time on, is to focus on one traffic source first. So instead of trying to be everywhere and try to dominate Google and Pinterest and YouTube and everything else, try not to do that, because you will be overwhelmed and you'll probably give up blogging altogether. So make sure to check out just one traffic source and double down on it. And then once you figure that out, move on to the next one, right? Now, when it comes to traffic sources, Google is notoriously hard to rank for, especially as a new blogger. So it might take you 1 to 2 years for Google to even start showing up your content on the search results, right? So if you're expecting that you start a blog today and tomorrow Google is going to send you millions of visitors, it's probably not going to happen that way. So make sure to keep that in mind when you're starting out as a new blogger. Now, YouTube, which is also a very effective search engine, comes next, but you do need to, again, create a pretty large library of content. Unless one of your videos goes randomly viral, it's going to be hard for you to get a lot of traffic from the YouTube channel to your website. But this can also be, again, a supplemental strategy, definitely. And if you're someone who likes making videos and you're comfortable on camera, I would highly recommend you to actually use YouTube as a strategy to bring traffic and subscribers to your blog, right? Now, when it comes to the third traffic source, which is one of my favorites and that I have actually used to generate, 5 figures and more in blogging income, is to use Pinterest. And the reason why I recommend this is because even now, even with 400 million users a month, Pinterest is a very, very good platform for driving organic traffic. And it doesn't take you years, it actually takes you weeks and months if you know what you're doing. And you can start driving that tomorrow. So you don't have to wait to have 1 million followers or 10,000 followers. You don't need to wait for 1,000 subscribers and all of those things. You literally can start today and start driving traffic from Pinterest tomorrow. Now, I have a ton of free resources on this channel that you can check out for Pinterest marketing. And I also have paid programs if you want to fast track your success and know exactly step by step what I do to build, hundreds of thousands of page views to my blog and how to do that quickly for yourself as well. So that brings us now to building income streams. Maybe this is the part that you've been the most excited about. And I know that as a beginner blogger, this can be something that you really look forward to, but it can be overwhelming if you don't know how to go about it. And that's what I'm going to show you how to really go about it when it comes to starting your blog. Now, there are different income streams that you can leverage. And of course, these are not the only income streams. You can create more and you can find more income streams as well. But I'm going to summarize some of the main ones. Now, the first one is by using advertisements, which is essentially when you team up with the ad networks such as AdSense or Mediavine or AdThrive, and they basically run ads on your website and they give you a certain commission every single month in exchange for the number of views that you have and the number of clicks that you get on your ads, right? The next really common method of monetizing your blog includes sponsorships. Now, there are some platforms like Izia, TapInfluence, Aspire IQ. There are also country-specific and niche-specific platforms. So you can really Google sponsorships in your niche, and then you'll find out the platforms that are the best for it. And next up, you have affiliate programs, something which is very popular here on YouTube and used to be very popular in the OG blogger space as well, but is getting less and less relevant because there's a lot of competition on affiliate programs and there are really a lot of platforms that you can use, but that only makes it all that much harder to make a lot of money from affiliate programs. So you have places like CJ Affiliate, Rakuten Marketing, Flex Offers, Share a Sale, which have lots and lots of programs that you can check out and start monetizing your blog with. The next source of income that you can have for your blog includes products. Now, products are basically two main categories. They can be physical products, so maybe creating merchandise, planners, mugs, anything that is specific to your particular industry. Or you can create digital products like ebooks, templates, courses, workshops, things like that, which you can sell digitally and you don't need to physically ship some things to someone, right? And next up, you have services, which is again a very, very popular way to monetize your blog. So you can be consulting people, you can be coaching them, you can have an agency where you create stuff or manage stuff for people. You can be a virtual assistant, you can have freelance services like web designing, web development, all sorts of things. So basically, these are the top 5 ways that you can monetize your blog. But just because you have these ways doesn't mean that you should be trying out all of them or that they are right for you for every stage. So here's what I'm going to share with you, some of the best practices when it comes to monetizing. Now, when it comes to ads and sponsorships, which people are usually most aware of about the blogging world, they think that this is the main way that people make money. And yes, to some extent, this is true. But the fact remains here that ads and sponsorships are very, very traffic dependent. So if you don't have a high amount of traffic, you're going to really struggle to make money on ads or even sponsorships, because why should someone sponsor you if you don't have a large audience, right? So why should they pay you to create an article or to share with your following if you don't really have that traction going? So I would say that if you don't have at least 10,000 page views per month, ads and sponsorships are not going to be the most lucrative method for you to make money blogging. And maybe you can look at it once you've increased your page views to at least 10,000 a month. Next up, affiliate marketing, which again has a lot of buzz around it and people think it is the easiest way. And in many ways, it is easy because you don't need to invest anything upfront. You don't need a certain amount of traffic. But the fact remains that because it is so competitive and because there are so many marketers doing affiliate marketing, you do need to have a certain amount of traffic and trust with your audience to actually convert and make a decent living, right? And that means that you also need to build some kind of authority in your niche. So if you're a tech blogger, for example, and it's a very competitive niche again, so you do need to have a blog which, let's say, shows up on Google often, or you have a large amount of page views or a large email list, so that you can drive those link clicks and conversions from affiliate marketing. And that means that in order to make a decent living from affiliate marketing, you do have to be picking the right programs. So people who pay you a lot of commission for every sale, but you also need to be building a lot of trust with your audience, because people are not just going to buy from anywhere on the internet, right? They do need to know that you are the right person to trust. And then offering services is essentially the fastest way to start making money with your blog. And you will see that a lot of bloggers who are making 6 figures and even 7 figures are coaches, experts, authors, things like that. And they started out by offering freelance services. Maybe they were doing one-on-one coaching. Maybe they were doing consulting. Maybe they were designing specific things for people. It doesn't really matter, as long as you have a service that can be offered and that someone is willing to pay for. That is literally the fastest way to start making money. So if you are, let's say, jumping into blogging full time and you want to supplement your income with services until some of the other some of the other monetization streams pick up, then I would highly recommend using services where you can actually showcase your blog as a portfolio, or as, let's say, an online album which showcases your work, right? And lastly, offering products can be the most lucrative way to make money. And you will see that most bloggers that are making 7 figures and more, or even 6 figures and more, generally have some kind of product, whether it is an ebook or a course or a program or whatever it is. They do offer some kind of product to make money from it. And the only thing that does matter when it comes to products is that it is something that is hard to do just at the beginning. So you do need to create an email list of subscribers. You do need to create sales funnels. You do need to learn all of these aspects. So even though offering products can be very lucrative and is very scalable as a way to make money, it does take a while to learn all of the things behind the scenes on it. And I wouldn't recommend this as a starting method, but if you do have, if you do build up a little bit of trust and authority, and you do start building up your email list, which is basically people who have subscribed to your blog, you can then start making money from products as well, right? You can start small by just selling an ebook or some kind of like design, or maybe some kind of digital product, and then you can grow that income slowly and steadily. But usually what happens is that when you make money blogging, you use more than one monetization method. So usually you use 3 or 4 monetization methods, and that way you can diversify different income streams. You can see what works best for you. You can see where you want to focus your attention on, and then you can increase or decrease the amount that you want to make from the other streams as well. Now that we know a lot of foundational content and a lot of foundational strategies on how to make money blogging, let's talk about fast tracking that growth, right? So as you know, a lot of people start blogs, but they don't actually make any money from it, or even if they do, it's not enough for them to continue. And here's where I'm going to give you a couple of tips after having started 3 different websites in the last 4 years. First off, double down on creating new content. So I know that it can be annoying to think of new blog post ideas and to consistently create content, but your content is the lifeblood of your business, right? Of your blog. So if you don't have content, you don't have traffic, and if you don't have traffic, it's going to be hard to make money. So they're all interlinked and interconnected, and that's why it is really, really important for you to have a content calendar at the beginning and stick to publishing as often as you can so that you can grow fast as well. Next up, pick one channel to drive traffic and master it. So if you pick Pinterest, just focus on that for a few months before you move on to the next, because like I said, without sufficient traffic, it's going to be a struggle to make money blogging. Next up, it's also important to invest in learning. So I have personally invested thousands of dollars in courses, programs, ebooks, etc., to learn how to do things, in a specific way, because there are chances that someone has already done it before you and has done it much faster than you. And if you try to do it yourself, it's definitely possible. It's 100% possible to do everything yourself, but it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to be a lot more challenging, and it's going to take a lot longer for you to make money versus if you start investing in your personal development and in your blog development and start learning how to use the right right tools and strategies to grow fast, right? Success leaves clues, you guys. So make sure to leverage that factor as well. And lastly, it's also important to stay consistent and patient. So I also know many people who started blogs, and after 6 months, they were like, oh, no one's reading my blog, I'm going to give up. Now, when you do that, then it's just pointless to start a blog, because you do need to give it a year or two to start seeing growth and traction, because of the nature of the business and because it is not the early 2000s and there is a lot of competition in this space. So you do have to stay consistent and make sure you're adding value to people's lives with your blog so that you can actually monetize and make money off of it. You can absolutely learn every skill you need to start making money blogging, but you do need to spend time, implementing that. You can't just learn all of the things and not implement any of that. So you do need to put in the work as well. And that's why it's really, really important to stay consistent and patient when you start a blog to actually make money off of it consistently. So that brings us to the end of this video. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, as well as turn the bell notifications on so that you never miss out on my weekly videos. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.